Hey everyone, welcome to another deep dive with us.
Yeah, it's great to be here.
Today we're tackling a topic I think a lot of people don't realize how much it affects them, and that's agricultural policy.
Absolutely. And to really dig into this, we're looking at this great blog post from Growing Augusta.
Yeah, have you heard of Growing Augusta?
Oh, yeah, they're doing really interesting work.
Yeah, they're kind of like leading the charge, I think, to
Wow.
kind of like rethink how we view food and where it comes from, and
Yeah, they're all about urban agriculture.
exactly. And I think that's something, more and more people are becoming aware of, right?
Oh, for sure. You see like community gardens popping up, rooftop farms. Yeah, it's
Even if you haven't like specifically noticed it,
Mhm.
I think there's just this kind of like growing awareness that our food system like needs to change, right?
Absolutely.
And this blog post really gets to the heart of like why our current agricultural policies are so often like out of touch with that reality.
It's true. They were designed for a different time,
Yeah.
these large industrial
Yeah.
farms. And so they don't really account for all these incredible innovations and the people who are trying to grow food in these new ways.
Right. And the blog post actually quotes Karen Gordon. She's one of the co-founders of Growing Augusta, and she says, "We need policies that reflect the realities of today's farmers, not just those who farm vast acres, but also those who grow food in backyards, rooftops, and community spaces."
I love that quote.
Yeah, it's so powerful, right? Because it really underscores this need for like a policy overhaul.
Absolutely. A complete rethink.
So let's like actually get into like the nuts and bolts of like what needs to change.
Okay.
The blog post lays out 5 key areas where policy changes are really desperately needed.
All right, lay it on me.
So first up is zoning laws. And
Mhm.
this is something I think a lot of people can relate to. Like, I live in a neighborhood that would be perfect for a community garden,
Uh-huh.
but there's always some zoning regulation that like gets in the way.
Oh, I hear you. On that one, zoning is a huge roadblock for so many urban farmers.
Yeah, and it seems so counterintuitive, right? Because it's like cities are like encouraging people to like be more sustainable and to like
Reduce their carbon footprint.
exactly and to like be more connected to their food, and yet
But then the rules say, no, you can't grow food here.
right.
It's like they're stuck in the past.
Yeah, it's like this weird disconnect.
Exactly.
So like what are some examples of like how zoning is like actually like preventing urban agriculture?
Oh, gosh. I've heard so many stories. There was this one group that wanted to start a rooftop farm on top of an old warehouse. Perfect location, right?
Tons of sun.
Exactly, central location. But the city's zoning code didn't even have a category for rooftop farms.
Wow.
So they were stuck trying to fit this innovative project into regulations designed for traditional ground level
So
farms.
they're like trying to like cram a square peg into a round hole.
Exactly. It makes no
Oh,
sense.
that's so frustrating.
It is.
And it's such a missed opportunity, right? Because it's not just about fresh food, it's about like making cities more vibrant and sustainable.
It's about green spaces. It's about community building. It's about resilience.
Yeah, and it's about like connecting people back to where their food comes from.
Absolutely.
Okay, so zoning's one hurdle, but then there's the issue of like actually getting these urban farms like off the ground financially. Like
Yeah.
I imagine securing funding must be a challenge.
Oh, huge challenge, especially for those trying something new and different. The existing systems just aren't set up to support them.
Yeah, I mean, you would think that like these smaller, more urban farms would be like more appealing to funders, right?
You'd think so.
They have the potential to like create jobs, improve local food access, contribute to the economy.
They're often more focused on sustainability than large industrial farms.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So why is it so hard for them to get funding?
Well, a lot of the grant and loan programs are designed for those large-scale industrial farms.
Oh, so it's like that same kind of like outdated thinking that we see with zoning.
Exactly. It's like we're trying to fit square peg in a round hole again.
It's like the system just doesn't recognize these innovative approaches.
It doesn't, and it's a real shame because there's so much potential there.
Yeah, it's like they're being penalized for being innovative.
In a way, yes.
That's crazy.
And that brings us to the third area where change is needed, recognizing and supporting alternative farming models.
Okay, so like hydroponics, aquaponics.
Permaculture, all these really cool and efficient ways of growing food.
Yeah, can we actually like dive into aquaponics for a second? Because I feel like I hear that term thrown around a lot,
Sure.
but I don't really understand like how it works.
So basically, you're raising fish and growing plants together in a closed loop system.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So the fish waste fertilizes the plants, and the plants clean the water for the fish. It's amazing.
Wow, that's so cool.
It's super water efficient too, which is perfect for urban
Oh,
environments.
that makes sense.
But here's the thing. A lot of regulations don't even recognize aquaponics as a legitimate farming method.
Seriously.
It's true. So these innovators are out there doing these amazing things.
And they're being told it's not real farming.
Pretty much.
That's
That's wild. It's like we need a whole new vocabulary for talking about agriculture.
yeah.
We need to update our understanding of what farming can be.
Okay, so we've talked about zoning restrictions, we've talked about funding issues, and we've talked about the need to recognize alternative farming models. What's next?
Well, you can't have farming without land, right? And
Right.
that's becoming a major problem, especially for small and urban farmers. Land access is getting harder and harder.
Yeah, that makes sense. Like land in cities is obviously at a premium.
It is, and developers are often more interested in building condos than supporting farms.
Yeah, so it's like a competition for space.
Exactly, and the farms are often losing.
So what are some of the specific challenges that urban farmers are facing when it comes to land access?
Well, land speculation is a huge problem. Developers are buying up land, driving up prices, and making it impossible for smaller operations to compete.
Right, it's like the little guy getting squeezed out again.
Exactly. And then there's the issue of development pressures as cities expand. They need more land for housing and businesses. And guess what often gets sacrificed?
Farmland.
Farmland. Exactly.
So it's like this constant tension between preserving valuable farmland and accommodating urban growth.
And unfortunately, farmland often loses that battle.
Yeah, we need policies that like prioritize the preservation of agricultural land and make it easier for small and urban farmers to access affordable land.
I completely agree. It's essential for a sustainable food future.
Okay, so we've talked about zoning funding, recognizing alternative models and land access, and now we need to talk about the big one, climate change.
Yes, climate change is a game changer for agriculture.
It's already having a huge impact.
It is. We're seeing extreme weather, unpredictable growing seasons, water scarcity. It's putting enormous pressure on farmers.
And I imagine those pressures are even more intense for urban farmers who are already dealing with like limited space and resources.
Absolutely. They're on the front lines of climate change in many ways.
So what kind of policies do we need to help farmers adapt and thrive in a changing climate?
Well, we need policies that encourage sustainable practices like water conservation, soil health, drought-resistant crops. It's about building resilience into our food system.
Right? So it's not just about like supporting farmers today, it's about equipping them to face the challenges of tomorrow.
Exactly. It's about thinking long-term and making sure our food system can weather the storms ahead, both literally and figuratively.
Yeah, so we've laid out these 5 key areas where policy changes are crucial: zoning funding, recognizing alternative models, land access, and climate resilience. It's a lot to unpack.
It is.
And I think it's easy to feel kind of overwhelmed by all of this, right? Like these are big systemic issues. So what can we as individuals do?
That's a great question and a perfect segue to part 2 of our deep dive.
Okay, Steve Hume.
Welcome back.
So we left off talking about how we as individuals can actually make a difference in this whole agricultural policy landscape.
Right, because it can feel kind of overwhelming.
Okay.
But where do you even start?
Right, it's like these big systems and you're just one person.
Exactly, but that's where I think the work of Growing Augusta is so inspiring.
Yeah, tell me more about like what they're actually doing.
So one of their most impactful programs is their South Augusta markets.
Okay, I've heard of those.
Yeah, have you been?
I haven't yet, but I've like seen pictures and stuff.
Oh, you gotta go. They're amazing.
Yeah.
It's not just your typical farmer's market, you know?
Like what's different about it?
Well, first of all, the atmosphere is just incredible. It's like a real community gathering place.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, people are hanging out, listening to music, eating delicious food. It's just a really vibrant scene.
I love that.
And of course, you can buy fresh produce from local farmers, but it's more than that, you know?
Yeah, like what else is there?
They have cooking demonstrations, educational workshops. They even have like a kids area where kids can learn about gardening and stuff.
Oh, that's so cool.
It's really about like connecting people to their food and to each other.
I love that it's like food is like a community builder. That's awesome.
And beyond the markets, they're also doing a ton to support urban farmers directly.
Oh, like how?
Well, they offer all kinds of training programs and workshops,
Great.
like on everything from like basic gardening techniques to like the business side of running an urban farm.
Oh, wow. So they're like really equipping people with the skills they need to succeed.
Exactly. And they also have a mentorship program where new farmers can connect with experienced growers and get advice and support.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's a really holistic approach. You know, they're not just saying, hey, go grow food. They're providing all this wraparound support.
I love that.
And of course, they're also actively involved in policy advocacy.
Right, because that's like the other side of the coin, right?
It is. You can't just focus on the ground level. You have to work to change the systems too.
Absolutely.
So, Growing Augusta is constantly meeting with policymakers, sharing data, telling stories, really trying to make the case for why these policy changes are so important.
Yeah, it's like they're the voice of urban agriculture in those spaces.
Exactly. And they're not afraid to be a strong voice. They're really pushing for real systemic change.
It's so important to have organizations like that who are willing to like step up and fight for what's right.
I agree. They're really leading the charge.
One thing I really admire about Growing Augusta is their commitment to inclusivity.
Yes.
They're really intentional about making sure that everyone has access to fresh, healthy food.
Regardless of income or background,
Exactly.
it's about food justice.
Yeah, because a sustainable food system has to be an equitable food system.
Absolutely. Everyone deserves access to good food.
So it's not just about like changing where our food comes from. It's
Uh,
about like changing who have access to it.
Exactly. It's about creating a more just and equitable food system for everyone.
And that brings me to a question for you listening right now.
Okay, I like where this is going.
What role do you envision for urban agriculture in your own community?
That's a good one.
Yeah, like as you look around your neighborhood, your city, what possibilities do you see?
Could there be a community garden in that vacant lot down the street?
Or a rooftop farm on top of that school?
Maybe a composting program at your local park?
The possibilities are really endless.
They are. It's all about using our imaginations and thinking creatively.
And remember, even small actions can make a big difference.
Absolutely. Every step we take towards a more localized and sustainable food system is a step in the right direction.
So think about what you can do to support urban agriculture in your own community.
And we'll be back after a short break to wrap up our deep dive into modern agricultural policy and explore how you can tap into this movement.
All right, we are back.
Back for the final leg of our deep dive.
So we've talked about these 5 key areas where policy changes are so needed. Zoning funding, recognizing these alternative farming models, land access, and climate resilience.
Big stuff.
Big picture stuff,
Yeah.
right? And it's easy to feel like, well, what can I actually do about any of that?
Yeah, it's easy to get that deer in the headlights feeling, right?
Right. It's
Yeah.
like, well, I'm just one person
Yeah.
for these massive systems, you know?
Yeah, but I think that's where it's important to remember that individual actions, they do add up. They create ripple effects.
Yeah, I mean, even if you just change one thing,
It can make a difference.
and one thing I like about what Growing Augusta is doing is like, they're really showing us like what's possible, right?
Yeah, they're not just talking about it, they're actually doing it.
Yeah, and it's inspiring, right? Because it's like, okay, well, if they can do it in Augusta, then like, why not here? Why not in my community, you know?
Exactly. It's about taking those ideas and adapting them to your own local context.
So let's think about like what that could look like.
Okay.
Imagine if we actually updated our zoning laws to embrace urban agriculture,
Ooh, I like where this is going.
right? Like that vacant lot down the street,
Yeah.
it could become a thriving community garden,
Providing fresh produce for the neighborhood,
bringing people together.
creating green space.
Yeah, exactly. Or what if grant programs were redesigned to support those innovative small-scale farmers?
Oh, that would be game-changing.
Right, that young entrepreneur with the aquaponics system,
They could finally get the funding they need to scale up their operation.
create jobs.
Bring fresh local food to more people.
And what if policies actually recognized and supported all those alternative farming models we were talking about?
We could see rooftop gardens popping up everywhere.
Vertical farms integrated into like buildings and structures.
Urban food forests.
Yeah, it's about like bringing nature and food back into the heart of our cities.
It's about reimagining what our cities could look like.
And when we address land access and climate resilience,
That's when we start talking about a food system that's not just sustainable,
but also equitable,
where everyone has access to fresh, affordable food,
where small farms can thrive.
and where we're prepared to face the challenges of a changing climate.
It's a big vision, but it's a vision worth striving for.
Absolutely. And you don't have to wait for policymakers to make it happen
You can start making a difference today
in your own community.
by supporting your local farmers markets,
Volunteering at community gardens.
choosing restaurants that source their ingredients locally.
Talking to your friends and family about these issues.
Every little action adds up.
And together we can create the kind of food system we want to see in the world.
So if you're feeling inspired,
Head over to Growing Augusta's website
learn more about their work.
and see how you can get involved.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into modern agricultural policy.
It's been a pleasure exploring these ideas with you.
Keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.